already getting emotional. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Wonder of Anime YouTube channel. My name is Lisa, and before the video even starts, I'm already emotional. And that is because you are joining me for the final chapter, the final part in my X Reread series for Clamp X/X 1999. This is part 6, y'all. So this is the 6th omnibus published by Viz, which includes chapters 16, 17, 18, and I'm pretty sure 18 and a half. And man, I'm already feeling emotional. This has been such a journey that I started at the end of last year. And to finally have finished it and wrap up all my feelings and my thoughts and all that stuff, it has just been such a journey, and I can't believe that we're here. If for some reason this is the first video that you have landed upon in my X series, I will be sure to include a playlist here where you can find parts 1 through 5 as I journey through rereading everything. And I will also include a link to my entire Clamp Reread playlist because I am rereading all of Clamp's work that have been published in English here in the United States, with the exception of some of them, the one-shots. I don't know. I've been skipping them. I might circle back and read them. We'll find out. Y'all, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been following along. If that my X series is what's introduced you or has caused you to follow along with my other content, welcome. This X series has been, I want to say, like maybe the most disorganized I've been, and moving forward in the works that I will be doing, you guys will be seeing the style kind of change a little bit. But X is just a lot, and for me it's very emotionally driven, especially coming from how emotional Tokyo Babylon was in. Like, I'm just so invested in the story, the characters, that I kind of ran off emotion. So moving forward, I plan and am executing the videos to be way more put together, but not so much that it loses the essence, because I'm a very emotional person. That's kind of how I operate, and that's what makes my content special. But I'm gonna do a little bit more organization because I do be knowing how to put videos together. I just wanted to get that out the way, and we're gonna jump right into the summary because, whoa baby, there's a lot to cover here in these final volumes. And I said it before that up until, I forget, I think it might have been my 4th, one of them had my favorite chapters, but this ending, even though, as we will come to find, it's not a complete ending, really has some of the best chapters, the best conclusions to certain plot lines in Clamp that are my favorite in the Clamp universe. But let's get started with the summary. Volume 16 picks up with Subaru and Seishiro meeting up at Rainbow Bridge. If we remember the conclusion of chapter 15, Evil Hinoto lied to everyone, split everyone up. Seishiro arrived late to the meeting. He got sent to Rainbow Bridge. Kamui and the others are at a completely different location. Of course, the two of them start fighting in their most obvious way to them, which is very tense and let me light your cigarette and be emotional together. Both Kamui and the others, they realize that nothing is happening where they are, and Kamui then suddenly gets a presence or a premonition. He sees that Subaru and Seishiro are fighting at Rainbow Bridge. They decide to split up so that Kamui can go to Subaru, and Arashi joins him, and they arrive at this crazy scene to see Subaru's hand through Seishiro's heart. Woo, baby. That scene in itself is just very powerful. Seishiro reveals that Hokuto placed a spell on him so that if he tried to kill Subaru in the same way that he killed Hokuto, the spell is gonna rebound and he would be killed. Subaru confesses that he wanted Seishiro to kill him, even if he meant nothing at all to Seishiro. Seishiro tells Subaru that, something that's omitted to the audience. I remember when I first read this, I was like, they gotta be a typing error. This has to be a printing error. But unknown to the audience, we were never supposed to know what Seishiro said to Subaru. Then the bridge collapses. Kamui is able to take Subaru out of the situation. We switch over to Kakyo, and he's revisiting the last moments between Hokuto and Seishiro. I'm just gonna pause here and say that You guys know, if you've seen my Tokyo Babylon, you know that I cried my eyes out when I was telling you about Hokuto's death. This was no different. Me experiencing, I'm tearing up now because it just hurts a lot, and I'll get into it a little bit more. But seeing Kakyo then revisit this with this new added information, never before seen, the spell is just whoo. In the flashbacks that Kakyo is revisiting, we see Hokuto tell Seishiro of the spell, so he was aware that this spell was gonna happen. And she tells him that, no matter the sin that's committed, like, he's still deserving of love. She still loved him. She knows that Subaru loved him. Even though he was killing her, she still had love for him. Kakyo and, Fuma be coming out of nowhere. Kakyo and Fuma then discuss Seishiro dying. Back at the house, I guess some time has passed. Subaru tells Kamui that he wanted Seishiro to kill him. Like, he in himself, in his mind, built up that he wasn't worthy of Seishiro killing him. So all this time, him smoking, him getting stronger, those were all things that he did to be worthy to be killed by Seishiro. Because in his mind this whole time, he's like, Seishiro knows where I am. He hasn't killed me because I'm not worthy of being killed by him. So this is like a fault on me. Subaru questions what Seishiro told him, if that was a lie or if he was saying the truth. That moment where it was admitted what he said. A month passes, Subaru disappears. The SEALs, they split up again, and they are going to locations based on where the Clamp School detectives are predicting things are going to happen. The volume ends with the backstory of Seishiro and his mom, who was the previous Sakura Zukamori, which is, they're the clan of assassins, but really it's one person. And he had to kill his mom in order for him to become the next Sakura Zukamori. She tells him that he'll be killed by the person that he loves most. And Seishiro, he's like a teen at this point. So he's like, that's impossible. Like, I'm not capable of loving anyone. And she says, I felt the same way until you were born. Volume 17. Evil Hinoto and Good Hinoto talk again. Good Hinoto tries to call out to Kano, and she hears her, but she's like, oh, my sister would never be calling me, so obviously she's not calling me right now. Satsuki attacks another location and again faces off with Yuzuriha and Arashi. Kamui and Sarada, they receive a message from fake Hinoto, Evil Hinoto. Kamui then realizes that a Shiki was used. So if we flash back to volume 1, where Kamui is introduced in the series, he is attacked by these men in like suits, and they're kind of like this weird magic thing. That's it. Like, they never get brought up again. You're like, that was really weird. Like, what is that setting up? Well, now we have that connection back to here. They see that Shiki, and then Kamui kind of instantly picks up on this, and he's like, hey, Sarada, like, we need to talk privately, but like, nobody, like not even a dream seer, nobody can go into what we're gonna talk. So Sarada uses his like priest mechanisms, monk, he uses those powers and creates like an environment where they can speak privately. Sarada's like, I bet, let me send one of my like little spirit things to spy on Hinoto. They're gonna be able to spy on the situation without being detected. Back at the fight, Arashi is attacked and she is protected by Sarada's familiar, but at the time she doesn't really recognize that it's like related to Sarada. Unbeknownst to her, Sarada receives the damage that his familiar received. They switch back, they're at a hospital now, and Sarada and Arashi, they finally talk about their feelings, and Sarada's like, I've made my choice, you're the woman that I'm going to be protecting. And Arashi's like, you're acting like this, like you sent that familiar, you don't even know my feelings, like you haven't even thought about how I would feel about you getting hurt in a situation like that. So he's like, so how do you feel about me? And basically, they realize they both feel the same way, and Sarada's like, yo, can I get your first time? And they end up sleeping together, where Arashi loses her virginity to Sarada, which then will become important later. Aoki and Karen meet up, and they visit Hinoto, Evil Hinoto, who sends them to Ginza. Fuma finds Subaru where Seishiro was born, and Subaru's like, listen, like, I'm done. I don't got nothing to do with the end of the world anymore. So Fuma tells Subaru, like, man, it's okay. But, you know, it's possible for Subaru to grant Seishiro's last wish. And even though Seishiro didn't, like, tell him the last wish, Fuma has the power to know everyone's wishes. So it's kind of at this point where Fuma's powers are, like, little by little, more and more of his role and what his powers are kind of get revealed to us, the audience. Fuma tells Subaru that Seishiro, like, he couldn't stand the fact that someone else scarred Subaru, because we remember that Fuma is responsible for Subaru losing his eye. Seishiro's wish was to erase that injury because somebody else caused it. Fuma was able to recover Seishiro's eye, whatever was left over at the scene of the Rainbow Bridge, and Fuma tells Subaru, like, if you take this eye, you are accepting the powers of the Zakurazuka Mori, and you become the next in line for them. So volume 18 starts with Sarada's figure witnessing evil Hinoto, and we kind of get like a little nod to that. And Subaru fills in Seishiro's seat as an angel because he took the eye. But Fuma's like, listen, like, you really don't got to do anything. Like, all the angels are acting independently. Good Hinoto and Kakyo's conversation talk that another dragon will fall and will be replaced. And then a figure is shown. It looks like Arashi, but also could be Kano because of the hair length, because Arashi's hair isn't that long. We see that Sarada and Arashi wake up together, and she's kind of like feels different. In Ginza, Aoki and Karen meet up with Nakato and they start fighting. Nakato and Karen, they have a heartwarming moment, and Nakato has a flashback to when they first woke up and Grandpa, the CEO of the Sunshine Corporation, is telling them that they want to change the future so that his granddaughter doesn't have to die twice. Karen is asking Nakato who told their grandfather about the end of the world, and that's when Fuma arrives. Karen sees Fuma, and we see that she's also seeing Aoki in him. Nakato protects Karen, and then Fuma kills her. Nakato tells Karen that Hinoto was the one who told the grandfather about the future. Fuma says that this was Nakato's wish. Nakato wanted to protect the person that was most important to them and die at the hands of the person that they love the most. So Nakato was seeing Karen as their mom figure and Fuma as their father figure. Fuma and Subaru, then they meet up again, and Subaru's a dragon, and Fuma's like, listen, you don't gotta do nothing with the end of the world if you don't want to. And then they talk about Fuma and how Fuma's wish, and Fuma says, you know, my wish is something that only the other Kamui can fulfill. Arashi leaves Sarada because she can't draw the sword anymore, and she realizes this is the same thing that happened to her mother, which is why her mother left, because due to losing her virginity, she no longer has the powers of the priestess to be able to draw the sword, and she feels like she's useless as a dragon of the heaven because she doesn't have the powers anymore. Karen and Kamui, they talk. Nakato ends up being buried where Katori is, and they have this heart-to-heart, and then they also talk about the men who kidnapped Kamui's aunt, Tokito, and they were men in black suits, the same ones that attacked him. And then the volume ends very ominously. The volume ends, and we've seen the figure that Sarada sent spying on Hinoto. That was a lot. That was a lot of ground that we covered, and as we can see, the tensions were rising. Everything was getting to a boiling point. Things were changing and things were being revealed that we're seeing, all that type of stuff. I do want to mention that I believe in my last video, part 5, where we talked about evil Hinoto being revealed, that I wasn't sure if it was ever said how many volumes there were supposed to be in X. I was able to confirm that there were supposed to be 21 volumes. So X was about to end very close to where we left off. I don't know what, I guess the numbers are, but this includes an additional half a chapter or 18.5 that wasn't in the first 18 volumes that were printed in the US. So it includes, I guess, that little extra tidbit of Hinoto like being seen, being evil by Sarada's little figure. Man, there was a lot. As someone who would want an ending, and there's no ending that exists, X leaves off at a super pivotal cliffhanging moment, because we already know that one of the seals ends up switching over. We see Subaru fill in the place of the Sakura Zukamori, and then Nakato dies, which means that somebody else needs to fill in that void. But I find it interesting that the seals are losing people because they've lost Subaru, and I guess it's drawn at the end that they're losing Arashi, but there isn't mention of those spaces being filled in. So why is it that Kamui, evil Kamui, Fuma's side has substitutes and replacements, but the other side doesn't, Kamui's side doesn't? So I think that that's interesting. Is Arashi the one that's going to take Nakato's place? That's also interesting because it seems that she would, because she is the one at the end of the volumes that she loses her powers, so she leaves them. But who knows, because the Sarada maybe go and get her back. Is someone else going to fill in that space? Like I said, from the little like future predicting moment where they show somebody in a hood with long black hair, the hair in the preview looks longer than Arashi's current hair length. I will be sure to put a little comparison here. So I'm not completely sold on the idea that it's her, because I don't see Sarada just sitting down and being like, nah, you're not gonna not be with me, and you're not gonna be on that other side. But it's Clamp, and Clamp loves putting lovers on opposite ends of the final battle of what needs to be done. It's very interesting to me, the reveal of Evil Hinoto and her being behind the men in the suits and the sunglasses that were after Kamui that harmed Tokiko. Because if this entire time, good Hinoto has been fighting and has been suppressing her, and it isn't until like the recent volumes that good Hinoto loses her battle against evil Hinoto, how in the beginning of the story does evil Hinoto send those men out? Is she possessed by evil Hinoto at that point? Does she take over good Hinoto's body and send those out and get, Tokiko? Or was that something that was like set in motion before? So many questions. So with all those questions that stand, like there were so many unanswered questions with, what's going to happen with Kamui and Fuma and the seals, who's taking over what, the angels are dying, the seals are dying, like who is going to take over? So obviously Clamp leaves a lot to be discussed on what is going to happen at the end of the world. So knowing what I know now, having reread this, will Clamp finish X? I don't think so. And I don't think they'll ever give us the ending. If they were going to give us an ending, it never was going to be satisfying, because there's basically nothing, like not everyone can win. And I don't know what would have been. Like the only thing that I can kind of theorize that would have happened is similar to what happened in RG Veda, which is where everyone else dies and then Fuma would snap out of it, and then Kamui and him are all that are left. And everybody's dead. There's all this guilt, and at least they have each other. Like that is the only ending that I could theorize happening based on the information that we have, based on Clamp's track record. And I don't know, for X, just because there were so many similar points to RG Veda with them trying to change destiny and, people having dual personalities. Like I just cannot see that Clamp would have gone a dramatically different way with X based on how close it seemed they were following a lot of themes in RG Veda. I also don't think that Clamp will ever finish it, because to me, this is my biggest takeaway from X. To me, they resolved the main plot line. And I know you guys are thinking like the end of the world isn't resolved. Kamui and Fuma isn't resolved. They don't care about Kamui and Fuma. They don't care about the end of the world. Their main plot line, to me, this is my opinion, but I believe this 100%. Their main plot line was still Subaru, Seishiro, Hokuto. And I will stand 10 toes down on this belief that X was a vehicle for them to close the chapter of them, and that's it. And to me, all signs point to this. As we know, the ending to Tokyo Babylon with Hokuto dying, the Subaru kind of like going rogue, Seishiro disappearing, and Subaru on the lookout for him. Like, it ends very, like, there's no ending there. So we already know there's gonna be a continuation, how the last volume of Tokyo Babylon ends with the time skip. In X, there is just so many moments where there's everybody else's story, but it seems to me that the primary focus has always been Subaru and Seishiro. How many times they interact, Hokuto now playing this big role where there was somebody else that loved her, her having placed that curse on Seishiro that wasn't revealed to us in Tokyo Babylon, that took X to be revealed. How much Subaru talks about Seishiro and how Kamui and Fuma's relationship and with Kotori was then mirroring Subaru and Seishiro's relationship. Like, all of these factors lead me to believe Clamp didn't care about anybody else in this story. Maybe they care a little bit about Kamui and Fuma because they bring them back later on. But to me, X is just the vehicle for them to finish the Seishiro Subaru chapter. And they finished that. They finished that at the end. And they finished it in a couple ways, right? Because they show us the Rainbow Bridge fight where even though Subaru really wanted to be killed by Seishiro, he's protected by Hokuto and he ends up killing Seishiro himself. Seishiro's final moments, he says something to Subaru that us, the audience, will never know. But we can kind of theorize what he said based on Subaru's trying to believe if it was true or not. Once Seishiro dies and he tells Subaru whatever he did, Subaru's like, I'm done. Like, the end of the world, life, like, I'm done. He finds himself revisiting Seishiro's home. Like, that to me, you know, that is the end. But the final nail in the coffin that leads me to believe that this whole time X is really about Seishiro and Subaru is the fact that the last final, like, you know, backstory, because, you know, they show everybody's little backstory or side story. The final little backstory is of Seishiro killing his mom and his mom saying that you are going to be killed by the person that you love most. And he says, I think, you know, I'm never going to love nobody. And his mom was like, I thought that until I met you. And I feel like in giving us that, you know, side story, that backstory where his mom says you're going to be killed by the person that you love most, and what he says to Subaru, and the fact that Subaru killed him, leads me to believe that Seishiro, the end is that Seishiro loves Subaru, and that's it. Clamp said we done. I'm letting y'all know that they didn't have the happy ending that they wanted, but their story is done. That's it. It's over. And because their story is done, there's no need for them to finish X. To me, if they finished it, you know, I hope, I pray that they release whatever the ending is. But to me, Clamp knew that they finished it when they finished Seishiro and Subaru's chapter. And now that those two are done, there is no need, there's no pressure for them. It's been 20 something years. They gave us what we wanted. Most people were there for Seishiro and Subaru anyway. Probably not, but those are my thoughts. And that thought encompasses what I feel like is my final feelings on the X series. X is one of those Clamp series that gets really messy really, really quick because there's a lot of characters, a lot of different moving parts. And Clamp tries to show you very important pieces of all these different characters, but as we see, some characters shine more than others. And because Subaru and Seishiro shine the most, even amongst Fuma and Kamui, I just know that the story was always about them. The story is just the vehicle to finish their story. As much as I really enjoyed X, like, I was there for them. Now, of course, I do want to see where everyone's ending is, but knowing that it ended at 18 volumes, there was 3 more volumes left. There's just, what else was there? Like, there's just so much to wrap up, and I feel like the same thing that happened in RG Veda, where like everyone's dying and everyone's dying according to fate. This was always the plan. Like, I feel like it was going to get rushed or just clampified anyway. Like, I don't think the ending would have been satisfying to anybody. In rereading X, I just had so much more appreciation for the story. I got really, really heavily like affected by it, as you see by my tears, not just with the Subaru and Seishiro, but as well with Kotori and Fuma and Kamui. And I really, 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 really wanted to know what is the end. But my prediction is that it would have been similar in RG Veda, where everyone dies, and then finally at the end, real Fuma is back, and Kamui and him kind of have to deal with like, hey, you just killed everybody and everybody's dead. Like, that to me, I feel like is what would have happened. In my mind, I don't see what else it could have been, unless other thought, the other more probable thought too would have been that Fuma kills Kamui, and then that in that moment, that's when he snaps out of it. And now he's there with another person dead at his hands that he loved and dealing with the consequences of that. Those are the 2 final thoughts that I had. And I don't see anybody else surviving, because literally everybody else was dying. Like, I don't see a world where they would have just lived happily ever after. I think for any Clamp fan, reading X is obviously a rite of passage, because as you will see later in X and Sarasa Reservoir Chronicle, a lot of these characters, they get revived and revisited and play other important, some not so important roles in those universes. But X really just had so much. It did amazing, and it was a great story. Like I said, it definitely is messy and suffered from Clamp wanting to put 10 million thousand themes in one thing, and I will stand that. As much as I love it, I think that's one of its major flaws, is that it put a lot of different stories in there, makes it hard to track, and kind of like the pacing of it too, because like months and months are passing in between stuff, and it's like there's so much ground to cover. I feel like this could have been one where 21 volumes may not have been enough. This series, I feel like, could have really benefited from probably being even longer. That might be a popular opinion, because a lot of people don't like long stuff, but I think it had that potential. Overall, I really, really enjoyed rereading X, despite all my mixed feelings, despite my theories and all of that. Or with my theories. I just had a lot of fun reading this series, getting deeply emotionally attached, as I always do. Even as much as they introduced, I do believe that it's still just a beautifully crafted story. And like I said, I wish it had an ending, but honestly, I'm 100% satisfied, because I was there for Seishiro and Subaru. To me, X only exists to finish that story. That being the storyline that got finished leads me to believe it was them. It was them all along. And because it's them all along, I love X, because that's who I was there for. And I would love a conclusion, but I'm also 100% satisfied, because the main stars of the show got their ending. And even though it wasn't an ending that I would have wanted, there was no other way to end it, because there's no universe where Subaru and Seishiro live happily ever after Seishiro kills Hokuto. There's just no way. And everyone knows that. Subaru knows that. Even as much as he loved him, he knows that that wasn't going to be it. He just saw it as him being killed as opposed to Seishiro, but it is what it is. Anyways, this video is so long, and this series has just been, it's just been a lot of me being emotional, but I really, really had fun. I've loved engaging in all the conversations that we have, both here on YouTube as well as on Twitter. As always, I would love to know your thoughts, what you thought about the series, my thoughts, your own theories. Were you satisfied with the conclusion? Do you think the same way that I do, that X solely existed to further the Seishiro Subaru hive? Let me know. But thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and I can't wait to see you on the next video and to dive into the next Clamp series. Peace.